Welcome home. We are WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We're positively into the holiday season. It's a fun week around here. I got holiday ho-hos and giveaways and Maryland lottery giveaways from our friends. Peppermint Payout. These smell like peppermint. The O-Snaps smell more like gingerbread than the peppermint smell like peppermint. And the Unwrap the Cash scent-free, which probably the way Luke would appreciate it, scent-free. As we get up on the holidays, we're going to be at Far and Dotter on Friday from 2 until 5 with Gina Shock, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. We're going to be talking about cannabis and bombs and all sorts of good stuff there. We're also going to be talking on Monday with our friends at Wise Markets up at Honey Go about the holidays and about eggnog and about food, which is one of my favorite things, and shopping and points and free hams and all that stuff that we talk about with Wise Rewards. That's on Monday at Honey Go from noon until about 3. All the information's up at Baltimore Positive. Find me on social media. We'll get all that out to you. Our friends at Window Nation are putting me up to wearing the fun hat as well. So I'll have the fun fisherman's cap on. I feel like I want to go fishing somewhere warm right now. 866-90-NATION if you want to order some windows. Do what we did. I was staring out the windows at the snow on a Monday morning in the lush paradise that is my estate and thinking, thank you, Winter Nation. I know my kitty cat thanks you as well. Also, our friends at the Jiffy Lube Multicare putting us on the road for the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. Friday at Far and Dotter and Timonium, 2 to 5. Monday, Wise Markets and Honey Go up in the upper Perry Hall, White Marsh area. Honey Go, I love that. It was like a forest when I lived in White Marsh. Nottingham, all we can fight about all those different places. I know where Fullerton ends though, but that'll happen on Monday, and then we're going to be at Fadley's on the 28th after Christmas. So Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Kwanzaa, Festivus, whatever you're celebrating at 10 and 3 with the Ravens. Luke, I'm bringing you in here, and I'm going to do something that I don't know that we've ever done around here. When the Ravens are 10 and 3 and Harbaugh's mismanaging the clock, and Lamar looks awesome, and Roquan Smith's the man, and everybody else is 7 and 6, and we're sniffing 14 and 3 and buys and TV with Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence, and then we're going to go play on Christmas night against the best team in the land and the 49ers, and now that the Eagles have sunk and the Cowboys have risen, and we're going to talk baseball. How you feel about that? We're going to talk baseball in December while it's snowing outside, as I look out my Window Nation windows and pray for doors and ask Santa for doors in 2024. Craig Kimbrel, $13 million. I heard you talk Dennis a little bit about it, and I thought, I'm going to have Luke on my show next week, and we're going to get to talk, and I'm going to get to wear my Curio baseball gear. And, and baseball's been more on my brain the last 6 weeks since the World Series, even though I don't remember who won. Try to forget everything that happens in Dallas. But they're trying, they're doing what they can do in small market. But the bigger story is this clear fight with the state and the lease and the ownership leak and and I'm wading through what is fact and fiction on all of it. But the fact is they bought a closer in this. At the top of Mike Elias's pecking order, we got to close games, man, and we don't have Batista, and we better do something. And if we're going to spend money on anything, let's start with that, because we don't want that to be the thing that costs us a chance to win the World Series next year.
No question about it. I mean, we talked about this going into the offseason even before the season ended in Arlington in that Game 3 loss to be swept by the Rangers. We were talking about this because we knew that Felix Bautista was not going to be on the field in 2024. So you're going to need a bridge at the very least. And short of going out and signing Josh Hader to whatever he ultimately is going to get, which is clearly going to be multiple years, probably going to approach, if not eclipse, $100 million. You knew they weren't going to make a move like that, whether they should, whether they could, or any of that.
Is this the point where I say 700 million?
Well, yeah, I mean, my goodness, we're talking about a different galaxy as it pertains to Shohei Ohtani and what the Dodgers are giving him. But
LeBron James was impressed,
Right. Sure. But we knew the Orioles were going to need a bridge here, right? So
even Darrell Revis, I got even Darrell Revis thinks $700 million is a lot of money.
But if they weren't going to do the Josh Hader kind of move. And, even Josh Hader the last couple years, hasn't necessarily looked as dominant as he was 3 or 4 years ago.
He's
You
local.
looked at, yeah, oh, sure, sure. But again, we can keep talking about that if we want to talk about dreams and sugar plums and all that, with the holiday season. But reality, Craig Kimbrel is probably the kind of move that you would have anticipated. And as I pointed out, as I wrote at BaltimorePositive.com recently, you look at the timing of the last couple off seasons, early December has been the time when Mike Elias has pulled the trigger on a 1-year deal for a pitcher. Now, 2 years ago, it was $7 million to Jordan Lyles, and that worked out as better than you probably would have thought, at least as well as you reasonably would have expected.
But you're also buying for a 100-loss team at that point.
Sure, no doubt. And I was going to get to that. So
Yeah.
you have that last off season, expectations higher than they were the year before, of course, after the surprising 22 that they had. But still, expectations were tempered in the sense of going into 2023, okay, the Orioles might have a chance to make the playoffs. They could be playing some October baseball. They could be one of the 3 wild cards, but certainly no one anticipated 101 wins. And the $10 million contract they gave to Kyle Gibson, again, still more on the side of raising the floor of your rotation, giving you some guys giving you another guy that can eat innings. Craig Kimbrel, obviously we're talking about a reliever here. 1-year deal, $13 million. The old adage is there's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract, but the stakes are higher for this. The risk is higher here. And anyone who saw Craig Kimbrel struggle in the NLCS against the Arizona Diamondbacks, yeah, you're going to take a little bit of pause. And that's why, there's been some critiquing and some criticism and frankly some disdain for this deal that I think has been a little over the top in some circles. But the reality is, if you're Mike Elias, you were looking for someone with experience closing games. Craig Kimbrel certainly gives you that as a 9-time All-Star, 417 career saves, misses bats. Guys like me, we're talking a lot post Batista in the Orioles bullpen down the stretch last year. They did not have a lot of swing and miss. They did not have a lot of strikeout ability. Craig Kimbrel has a career strikeout rate of 14.2 per 9 innings. Even last year, as he's now in his mid-30s, he still struck out 12.3 per 9 innings, which was better than anyone in the Orioles bullpen not named Felix Bautista last season. So this is a move that, look, is Craig Kimbrel the elite Hall of Fame kind of closer that he was with Atlanta? And then when he transitioned pitching for the Boston Red Sox, no, he's not that guy, but he is still someone who can be of great value to them. He gives them more experience. He gives them another high leverage arm in the back end of the bullpen. And for me, and this is where I'll tie it in with what we saw with Jordan Lyles 2 years ago, albeit for a team that was still not anywhere close perception-wise to being a contender. And even last offseason with Kyle Gibson, where for me, I'm really judging this move, not just on how Craig Kimbrel will pitch this year, but also what else do they do between now and the start of the season? Because part of this for me is Mike Elias fulfilling the other half of what his 2 big goals were going into this offseason, which were what? A closer or an established late inning reliever of Kimbrel's ilk, and obviously adding another starting pitcher, presumably, hopefully, for at least the top half of the rotation. Because if you do that, what does that mean for your bullpen? That means you have a much better path to just say with DL Hall, you know what? You're going to be a reliever. We love your potential. Do we think you could be a starter? Sure, but you've also missed a lot of development time the last couple of years. You haven't shown the improved command that you would need to go through a lineup 2 or 3 times as a starting pitcher would. But you know what? DL Hall, we think you could be the next Josh Hader maybe if everything goes really, really well over the next couple of years. But you can add him to your bullpen. If you add that starting pitcher that you covet, you can then put Tyler Wells in the back end of that bullpen. So now it's not just Craig Kimbrel. It's not just Yennier Cano. It's not just Danny Coulombe and CNL Perez. But now you have DL Hall in that mix. You have Tyler Wells in that mix because you're not needing those 2 to be starters. And you can imagine them as bullpen arms from probably not the start of spring training. I'm guessing they'll stretch those guys out as they tend to do with those guys that are kind of in between. But then as they get to the end of spring training, if you have a healthy Bradish and a healthy Grayson Rodriguez and a healthy John Means, and hopefully pitcher A, whether that's via free agency or a trade, and then you have Dean Kramer, then, well, you can put Tyler Wells in a relief role. You can put DL Hall in a relief role. And now it's not putting everything on a 36-year-old Craig Kimbrel. It's now you have Kimbrel, and yeah, he's going to be the primary closer at least early in the season. But you've got Tyler Wells, who I think is intriguing in a late inning role. You have DL Hall, who I think can be dominant in a late inning role. You still have Yennier Cano. Those are options, Nestor. And even if they had a Felix Bautista healthy for 2024, you still want other high leverage arms that you can count on. And we talked about that even before he went down with an injury last year. That's why I was screaming about them getting another reliever that was more established than Shintaro Fujinami, which didn't work out.
Obviously. I was about to bring his name up, so yeah. I'm glad you brought him up, because when you think about what they were doing this year, and look, man, I'll hear all day long that they weren't a real contender, and they became a real contender when Bautista became a real closer. They became a real contender when Bradish stepped up and was better than anybody thought he could be, or even on his, like, they, that's when they become a contender. And all of this happened very quickly, very ahead of schedule, in a lot of ways, ahead of budget. John A., Mr. Angelos, whatever we're calling him at this point. But, a lot of that happened. And now you're thinking, like, all right, how did they do it before? Well, they did it with, rubber bands and paper clips and bubble gum. I mean, like, honestly, Bautista wasn't on anybody's list to be that kind of a closer. Cano, they didn't even know what they had in him in March and April, and that he was going to be what he was in May, and what he continued to be to some degree, which was not what he was in May, but I mean,
but still good.
But still good, right?
Yeah.
And something you believe in. Little Brett Michaels for the holiday there. Give me something to believe in. I would just say, for them to make a move like this, knowing Bautista's gone, knowing Cano could flame out, knowing whatever CNL Perez and whatever you think of DL Hall or whatever, we got to get a grown-up in there. And I talked to you last week about not spending the money on Kyle Gibson and saying, we're going to do better than that as a pitcher. And I'll hear that all day when they do, when they get, when they make the Dylan Cease or the this or that, whatever they do, I'll believe it. New ownership would change that dramatically, right? Like, like literally and quickly, because new ownership would probably say, buy a pitcher, sign the shortstop, figure out the catcher, let's go all in, let's sell this as something new. That could happen between now and April. Oh, Santa, all I want. I don't need cannabis. I don't need coffee from Royal Farms. I don't need a mint condition Louis Aparicio 1958 Topps yellow card. I don't even need a UFO Pacifica belt buckle or a Blues Brother one. I just need the Orioles. I need the Birds to be freed. And part of this is, if the Birds were free, what would their real budget be? Would it look like Milwaukee? Would it look like Kansas City? Would it look like Pittsburgh? What would new ownership, when the Angeloses squeeze every nickel, all $2 billion out of this that they haven't earned and deserved, and they run away, and there's a debt service and a business to run, $28,000 there on clinch night and $5 night and $20 squirt everybody night. They got to sell. They got to make some money. They got to figure out how to get this brand fixed. Really, while the Ravens were giving away $3 tickets and there were 20,000 seats there. So I'm going to continue to point that out, that fixed is what Kansas City and Buffalo look like in football. Fixed is what Philadelphia and Atlanta look like in baseball, where it's full all the time and it's a daily going concern. And Craig Kimbrel makes the morning newspaper ahead of maybe even the Ravens being 10-3. When you win 101 games, that there would be a lot of concern for the baseball team. And I'm dreaming of all of that. I'm dreaming of the sugar plums because it's the holidays. I'm full of gratitude. I told Bill Cole all about that at State Fair. But I'll say this on the pitching and on their budget and on where they are. I'm not a reactive guy. You know this. When these things happen on Twitter, I've been doing this too long. I'm 40 years into this. I'm a grown-up. I'm a professional. I don't run out and judge the deal or judge the money, because I do want to see the full complement. But in the way that Bautista was unearthed, in the way that Cano was discovered under a rock, in the way that CNL Perez finds the fountain of left-handedness and the fountain of Kevin Hickey, and all of these pieces happen. I like the fact that they have a grown up. I like they have a fact that guy that just failed, right? They come in and there's something to prove, and he's, as Earl Weaver would say, going to the effing Hall of Fame if he does this the right way. He's on that, on a pathway to prove something in the way that maybe Lee Smith when he came in at the end, or I'm trying to compare it to something from a
Mm-hmm.
million years ago. I mean, I think of Jose Mesa's success after he, Google him, Joe Table. But I mean, he was unstoppable at the end in the way that Batista felt like Eckersley last year at various points and had and for them to lose Kyle Gibson and maybe sign on for a young kid that it doesn't have that and they don't have that Sutcliffean thing, to have a grandpa hanging around who I hope is level-headed, I mean, and certainly has been through a lot of situations. I hope they're giving him the money like Odell Beckham, thinking he's going to make the room smell better and be a part of that and be a part of coming in here and really being excited to have a 101 win team. He signed here because they can win, not just for the money. So we haven't had anybody do that. So I thought that last week, like,
Yeah.
oh, things changed for the Ravens when Saragusa was happy to be here, when McCrary signed up to be here, when Sam Adams wanted to be here with his buddy McCrary, when they thought they could win, when Rod Woodson walked through the door, when Shannon Sharp walked through the door. Hey, Henderson, you're a
Mm-hmm.
good kid. Rutschman, I like you. I like that rah ish. I like that. I'm a semi washed up kind of ball player. Still has something left. I want to pitch to you, kid, because you're going to the Hall of Fame. And like, I'm Scherzer, I'm Verlander at the end of the end of the end with a real owner here, and I want to import something like that in August, something that would smell like the David Wells deal or the Jimmy Key, or start importing some dudes, getting some Mike Macinas to leave the place they are to want to come here because they can win. That's what you want to be building. And I think Kimbrel's a beginning block of, we signed the pitcher for real money in the semi-prime of his career. That's not Kyle Gibson. It's not a fifth starter, a guy we gave real money to, a guy we think can have 42 saves next year, a guy that can make Cano better, make our guys better, help our pitching coach a little bit because he's seen situations, and he's going to be an all-in guy. The way Beckham has been, right? The way I talk about Roquan Smith, the way you want a little heart transplant with when you make that sort of a splash, and he's making more money than anybody else. You know what I mean? He's the one that's going to be buying on the road because he's got the money more than any of the rest of them. I know how that works. That if you can be that kind of leader that we talked about with Kyle Gibson, this is a great signing. I mean, it's a step in a step that I'll check off on. If this is a failure, they tried hard. They made an investment. They made a decision. As Sig Mejdal said, they read the room and played their hand. And I'm okay with this. I really am. I think they made the best of. I'm surprised by it because they don't sign $13 million. Like, I'm a little surprised by it when you're like, you said they need to get a relief pitcher and a starter. And I thought, well, maybe they'll give up Westberg and give up a couple of players and go get Cease because of the money part of it. The money part of it changes dramatically, Luke, if the team's going to be owned by somebody else in March. Like, it really does.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't written about it, but like, it would change dramatically the philosophy of what they're trying to do the next 3 to 5 years in fresh air, Henderson and Rutschman for life, new, everything except Hyde and Elias, and like all of that. Man, I'm wearing orange and black, dude. I almost
Hmm.
smell it. They won 101 games. They just spent $13 million on a relief pitcher, and I'm smelling that John Boy might be moving on or getting kicked on. Because somebody can put out all the misery of Masson and make it go
Yeah.
away. I don't know, but whatever it is, it feels like it might be happening.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, that part I'm not. And look, I share in that sentiment. Let's be very clear, but I'm also not holding my breath, right? Because as
Here's
you
where it
know,
got weird for me, dude. I'm in a hotel room in Toronto, snowing outside. Okay, I planned for this. I swear to God, I planned for Toronto. My wife, I checked the weather. It was going to be in the 20s there. I didn't have a ski cap. Okay. So like I'm looking for, this is the only hat I have, the Window Nation hat. So I'm looking for a ski cap, and the only one I could find said Free the Birds on it. And I had worn that hat to go get coffee in the morning because it was cold in Toronto. Because like that's what makes Geddy Lee so high. It's cold, cold, cold. And I put my Free the Birds hat on, and 4 hours later, I'm getting a text from you telling me the team's going to get sold. And I'm thinking to myself, karma, man. I don't know, something. The ghost of Greg Zaun.
Well,
I don't know, something.
let me be clear. Texts from me did not say they were going to be sold, but hey, it's out there. David Rubenstein. But I don't need to tell you. You know as well as anyone.
The text actually came from Pat
whispers and
Schroeder,
murmurs
who
at
was
various times in the past.
Pat was the roadie for my band and my 513 compatriot. And yes, and I literally got a text with the link to the Bloomberg thing at 2 p.m. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I got a Free the Birds hat. I was out with Brad Gagnon getting lit up in Toronto on red wine and sliders at the Keg. And next time, when the Orioles get fixed, Luke, you got a passport, right? We discussed this before.
Yeah. Yeah.
When the Orioles get fixed, you and I are going to go to Toronto and we're going to rip it up. We're going to go to the Keg and we're going to do what Canadians do. And I'm going to go to every Blue Jays game until Geddy Lee shows up. That's what I'm going to do. So there. I got dreams, man. I love baseball. I'm with Brad. All he wants to do is talk baseball. He's get his Blue Jay shirt on. Geddy Lee was on stage. And if you go and watch the piece, people have said to me, oh my God, Geddy and Alex. And it was like, it was a religious experience, Luke. It was like a high holy holiday. Christmas and New Year's and Festivus. I saw Geddy and Alex talk about their lives from 40 feet away. It was a pretty good night. But in the middle of it, Geddy openly stopped everything and campaigned for Shohei Ohtani. Like literally stopped in the middle and got everybody chanting Shohei, Shohei. Like literally that happened in Toronto. While I had a Free the Birds hat in my pocket in my jacket, keeping me warm. So there, Free the Birds.
Well, and you just buried the lead as far as the best development of the last week is that Shohei Ohtani did not go to the Blue Jays or the Yankees or the Red Sox, right? He's in the National League. So the Orioles don't have to worry about him until the World Series, potentially, as it pertains to October. So
do you know how much it costs to run a baseball team, Luke? Do you have any idea?
It's pretty expensive. It's pretty expensive.
$700 million.
Yeah.
Jiminy.
Wild, right? Especially when he's not going to pitch next year. Right. He's recovering from elbow surgery. But, just to finish up on Kimbrel, look, 23 saves last year. He was not the Phillies' exclusive closer. They had Jose Alvarado. They had some other guys they'd go to in some different spots. Rob Thompson didn't mix and match, play matchups exclusively by any means. But it was very clear with Kimbrel that he went through some periods of time when he wasn't as good. And if that was the case, they from him and they went to someone else. That goes back to my point about wanting to see DL Hall in the bullpen, wanting to see Tyler Wells in the bullpen. More late inning options you have, the better. And you are talking about someone who's 36, who probably isn't best suited to be throwing. He's certainly not going to be throwing 70 plus innings like Felix Bautista was on track to do last season. So, hey, it's a $13 million deal. It's a 1-year contract. If it doesn't work out, to your point, it was an attempt to add some experience, some swing and miss. Kimbrel's 23 saves last year nearly equaled their career total of their entire bullpen last October, which had 25. So just shows you how desperately they needed some experience with Bautista out this year. So as it pertains to the connection with what you mentioned with ownership and what's happening there, again, look, I think just about every Oriole fan is on the same page there.
There is not enough beer in this town. I'm going to have to get on the phone to Union over there. I'm going to have to get on the phone to all my brewery friends and say, Manor Hill, I'm coming for you. All of you. Key, I'm coming to Dundalk. I'm coming for all the brewmasters I know. Hugh, I'm over there. Guinness, you're last in line. You're at it. You're done. But the locals, they will not. Beer better go into extra production. If this team's going to be sold during the and extra eggnog, and I know it doesn't even mix. I'll have beer and eggnog at the bar down at Coco's, and we'll walk over to 33rd Street and kiss the ground where you met Brooks Robinson. Is what we'll do.
Sounds good.
On a cold day, naked, almost naked.
I was going to say that's a step too far, but
I'll do it naked the first 72-degree day. How about that?
That sounds good. We'll see. I mean, we're going to see how this span plays out. I think it's well documented in terms of the best interest and timing of a sale as it pertains to the Angelos family and Peter and all that. So we'll see. But it's certainly compelling. And I mean, obviously, in the meantime, is there a lease? Is there not a lease? What are politicians saying about this one? What's going on in Annapolis? I mean, all that. And until as I quipped to you on, I guess it was Friday evening when we were talking about this, until there's a lease where you could see the ink from the signatures, there's skepticism at this point based on conflicting reports, even on Friday. But
I know one guy you can trust.
You.
Yeah. I mean, you
I
can
knew you were going to
trust
say
me.
that.
Yeah. I know one guy that if there's report and there's things written this week, it will be truth. It will come from I and me and us and we, because the walls are talking. At least over the weekend they were. So we'll hear. Things are up at down in Annapolis. They're up in New York. They're up, and my radar is up on all of this. And 13 million for a reliever, and who's going to be running things. And man, I'd love the fairy tale that in the end this all gets happy with a parade, right? I mean, we feel close. We're sitting here talking about this in real terms with the football team at 10-3 with a bye and with the health of number 8 and all the reality of that. You know what, man? I got to get Cole back next week, maybe to Wise Markets and rethink the whole gratitude thing for the holidays. Maybe I should talk a little more openly about that. So, hey, man, I think we can break it. Are you done with the Orioles? Are we okay at least for now? Take a time out with Orioles and get back to sending you out to Owings Mills.
Just I'll say what I said a few minutes ago. Still need to get that starting pitcher via trade or free agency, however it gets done. Add that starter to the top half of the rotation. To me, that gives you an opportunity to make that bullpen even better. Makes the Kimbrel signing look even better. I'll leave it at that.
Anything baseball outside the Orioles that you were happy or pleased with in regard to dealings the last week and a half? There's been a couple trades, signings, other guys not being. I mean, who gets signed when and where, to your point, and where their budget is and how much they're going to fight. I'm a little shocked the Ohtani thing happened as quickly as it did to me, to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I'll say this much. It's going to be fascinating to see how many other players begin to move now, how many other moves go down now. Because, I mean, obviously it wasn't just the Dodgers. I mean, the Blue Jays, other big market teams were looking at that. And your mid to high market teams were monitoring that to see, okay, where does Ohtani land? What does that mean for us? If the Dodgers sign him, can we go sign someone else that the Dodgers aren't going to get? Now, I mean, there's all those dominoes. I mean, we know how it works in baseball. Unlike the NFL, unlike the NBA, free agency moves much more slowly. So for this, not just the big fish, I mean, the biggest fish we've seen in major professional sports history here in America.
That's not a fish, dude. That's a whale.
I mean, that is it's amazing. So what that means for other players now as the Ohtani dust settles, we'll see how it plays out. But certainly it was fascinating to see how that played out, and so much of the hand wringing about media coverage and reports, incorrect reports, and where he ultimately announced it on Instagram because, hey, it's 2023. Of course, you're going to announce your own move on social media. So it's going to be interesting. And hey, at least Shohei Ohtani doesn't have to move too far, right? Just Anaheim to Dodger Stadium, not that long of a drive, I guess, depending on traffic, depending on the kind of time of day.
Anything that disappoints Geddy Lee hurts me at this point in my life. But it was fun to be in a town where it's snowing outside and everybody in the place is buzzing about baseball and wearing Blue Jays stuff. And it was good. It was good, man. Good little getaway for me. But I am back through the holidays and doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. I'm wearing my Curio Orioles baseball gear here. We're going to be at Far and Dotter. Yes, it's a cannabis dispensary. Yes, they have all sorts of holistic things. Yes, there's a spa. There's all sorts of stuff going on there. As well as gift-giving ideas for the holidays. Gina Shock's going to be joining us from the Go-Go's. We're going to talk about House of Shock, going to talk about her book, going to talk about Dundalk. She's probably going to curse. I'm probably going to encourage it and allow her. All of it's going to be brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. Snap giveaways here. Smell like gingerbread. Peppermint payout. Smells like peppermint, but overwhelmed by the gingerbread, as well as our friends at the Unwrap the Cash. I had a couple of these winners the other day as well. So we're going to be at Far and Daughter on Friday from 2 until 5. We're going to be at Wise Markets in Honey Go with Derek Frazier, former professional wrestler, and other unmentioned guests from parts unknown. And that's going to be on Monday from noon until 3. We'll be doing that. By the way, dude, I found an interview I did with Jerry the King Lawler many years ago that I unearthed that I found in my archives. So I got to at least throw that your way because I was going through crop because that's what I do this time of the year to maybe bring the best crop back to life here before the holidays. Our friends at Window Nation, they don't have crap. 866-90 Nation. Love my windows. My cat loves my windows. My heating bill, especially this time, loves my windows. And I'm sure I'm going to love doors. Please, Santa, bring me doors in 2024. 866-90 Nation. You buy 2, you get 2 free, 0% financing. Got to find out what they do for doors. Jiffy Lube Multi-Care also putting this on the road, as is Leonard Raskin. My little orange light goes off, and I think it's Orioles season, but it really tells me my oil needs to be changed. So I got to get over to Merritt Boulevard, get that done as well for the holidays. I'm eating cookies. I'm waiting on pie. I'm waiting on Santa to bring me a new baseball owner. I'm waiting on Santa to bring me a football parade and a press pass back. And I don't know, Red Ryder BB gun. Luke will be out in Owings Mills shooting it straight. I will be here trying not to shoot my eyes out while I wait through the holidays. I am Nestor. He's Luke. We're doing sports. We're doing fun. We're doing crab cake tours. We've had a lot of fun around here with conversation about Baltimore and how I'm related to John Shields and how great Dan Roderick's show is. So make sure you're checking all that stuff out up at the mothership. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, welcoming Craig Kimbrel to town. We're BaltimorePositive.com. Stay with us.